what's going on, everybody? Welcome. Congratulations, Standing Stones. Yeah. We're broadcasting on another channel. Are you okay tonight? Simply Spooky. Yeah, another channel from UK, ladies and gentlemen. So, hello, Nicole. Welcome, Nicole. Hey, Jam Camera. Welcome, everybody. Pamela Hockett. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Roger. So, well, everybody's sliding in there. Welcome, everybody. Hopefully, everybody's having a good Thursday night. So, what's going on with you, Mr. Decker?
Oh, not much. Just another week passing by, man. It's already almost the middle of September. I can't believe it. Just going way too fast. Way too fast.
Yeah, so you like that Standing Stones. You like that. So that's what happens when people donate money. And I got business cards for the show coming up on October 7th, the conference I'm going to. Thanks to everybody's donations. This is what the money goes to. I really appreciate it. And it goes to more content and advertisements. So it adds up, ladies and gentlemen. $1.99 here and there. I'm telling you, I really appreciate it. So yeah, Tammy Johnson, welcome everybody. So very interesting. I have been working on a few things, right? I've been working on Operation. Welcome everybody to the show. I've been working on Operation Camera Stealth. I haven't really talked to you too much about it. I am like full of chiggers. I'm like got like a half a bottle down of clear fingernail polish.
There you go. And, you know how to deal with them then.
Yeah, but I actually got on Amazon.
And
order some special stuff.
Oh well, listen. Back home in the jungle, that's what we use was nail polish.
That's
never
right.
failed.
Hey, Brian Barber. Brian Barber, you are right about that conversation. I wouldn't trust that. But yeah, Rebecca, just to let you know, Rebecca, I'm going to have to apply for AAA with you and Yolanda. So somebody's got to check on her, by the way. I haven't seen her. Hopefully, I know she wasn't feeling good the other night. But Lauren, I'm glad you're here. I haven't missed you too. Raymond, how you doing there, Raymond? So Operation Stealth Camera. I have a bunch of trail cameras, different makes and models and manufacturers. Some IR, some non-IR. And there's some other ones too that are infrared and some are non-infrared. And I actually got contacted, ladies and gentlemen, yes, by a manufacturer of a trail cam company I cannot announce. They're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, you really want to know? And they're like, yeah, we want to know. And I'm like, here I go. And they're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, send me all your social media links and give me a spiel. Hey, Russ, what'd you think about that new trailer with you in it? You're like, but anyways, so I gave them all my information. So anyway, so I got these trail cams out and I did them strategically military style. So, so if, we know that Bigfoot and Sasquatch, right? We know that they can see the IR and infrared. So that way, if a deer or whatever sends a camera off over here and it's like, whoa, and they see that, they're like, oh, hell, I ain't going over there. Hopefully over there is going to go snap, cheese. Gotcha. Right. So hopefully I can then don't laugh. You know, my shipping tape that I use, right? That is, I hate to say it, that is gorilla shipping tape. So, anyways, I'm shipping something back to Amazon. So I use 2.5 rows of that. Now, I don't know how many yards on a row. Hello, Liana. Welcome to the show. So I have put tape from tree to tree, and I put a whole roll of tape down. all the way through the forest. A whole row, just a single row laid out for booby traps, ladies and gentlemen. So
Nice.
I did not go out by myself because I'm scared to go in the world. Go in the world. Go in the woods by myself because of the Cherokee and then Indian tribes and everything. So I took somebody with me, and she's full of chiggers too. So, I was worried that I was going to get up the next morning and have all this tape stuck to my back door. But what was interesting, now check this out. So I did get a photograph. I took many pictures out there. Now I'm going to show you the camera I used because you wasn't on my other show. This is one of my cameras I used to use in investigations. Detachable lens. I've got about 7 different lenses. This is a 70 by 300. Okay. Put new batteries in it, program the date, time, the year, everything, new batteries. Went out, took about 70, 80 pictures. All right. I have my real nice GPS. I did the coordinates on every camera I put out. I covered a lot of acres. I couldn't tell you how many square miles. It took me about 7.5, 8 hours. It took me a day and a half to do all this. So 8 batteries per camera, right? So I know from interviews and speaking to other people that's been in the field for years that they can also smell batteries and whatnot, different batteries. So I use rechargeable batteries. I use NiCloud batteries. I use lithium batteries. I use regular Duracell. But so I did a mixture of batteries too.
Okay.
So I did. So you see what I'm doing here? I'm doing a lot of theories. So I took a telescoping ladder with me, which I didn't use because I was going to put them up 10, 12 feet up in the air and point them down.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't this time. That's plan B and C. I got plan A, B, C, D, and E. So we know that they move the cameras, they wave sticks, they look at them, right, with the eye. We know that they rip them off the trees and bite them and toss them. So I don't know how many cameras I'm going to have, but I don't know. So I got back, and right for the show, I was going to show some pictures where I was at and what the woods look like. And right for the show, I was like, oh my God. And everybody's like, what? You know how we are in the green room backstage. And I'm like, dude, I lost like 70% of my pictures. And my camera went back to 2009, January 4th at 11 o'clock a.m. So I lost all these pictures. My camera, I mean, the date and time changed. I don't know why it did all this, right? But we got one photograph. I was clicking through it, and I was like, well, this doesn't look right. So, but the problem is, with that lens, we cannot judge the distance because it reaches out.
Right.
We compared it to somebody else's photograph of alleged Bigfoot sitting in the woods staring at them. And man, does it look almost identical. But the problem is I cannot go back to the original location to debunk it because I don't have the timestamp to match it up with the GPS coordinates to go back to recreate it and take more photographs and go out to that location to see what it is. So now it's just whatever.
Yeah.
So now check this out. So behind the house, now this is where it gets creepy. So behind the house, I'm walking, and I've put a bunch of, because this area is just don't seem right. Grass is not grown. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, grass does not grow in certain areas in shade. I know that. Okay, but I know I'm an ex-hunter. Okay, I know a difference between a game trail and a trail. So when I'm looking at this area behind the houses, by my house and the neighbor's house, this area is just like awful large. So, and I put a bunch of cameras up there. So as I'm walking, I'm looking, I'm like, well, this don't look right. And I'm like, nah, pareidolia, whatever. So I skip over it. So I was talking to Chris and I was like, man, I was like, this is really bothering me. I need to go back and take a picture. It's getting ready to rain of what I saw. And he said, what'd you see? I was like, man, I don't know. It's just, I don't know why I didn't take a picture. So I went back and I measured it. It was a little over 13 inches in length. And it was weird. It wasn't wide. It was long, a long track. But you can see the toe indentions, and the ground was so dry, the weight of it, it cracked the ground where it stepped.
Okay.
So now that gave me a little more teeth to sink into, right? A little more bite.
Yeah.
Because you know where the middle tarsal break, right?
The metatarsal break. Yep. Yep.
So that was there, but the heel impression was very deep, and so was the front part. But right where that break was,
yep,
you can see it. And right where the heel broke, it cracked the ground going from the heel over to it and right in front of the toes. So that gave me now that gave me a little more teeth to bite into and maybe say, okay, maybe this could be possibly something. So then I followed one of the trails up to the neighbor's house. Guess what I found?
Let me guess. It went up to a window or something, and you found print something on the window.
Close.
Ah.
A very oversized, big pear tree.
Okay.
And I looked and I was like, well, this is strange because that's a food source. I know deers eat pears, right?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So now I know there's heavy traffic.
Yep.
So here I am. So I go all the way up to the neighbor's fence and I'm looking at the house and I'm looking at this pear tree. Guess what else I see? A single female, ladies and gentlemen, lives alone with kids. Now, this is awkward. I see cameras. Nobody has cameras in this neighborhood. People that have cameras, ladies and gentlemen, are usually the ones that are doing something that are illegal or up to no good. But why would you have cameras pointing at the woods?
Because they've been experiencing stuff and they're trying to catch it on film.
Okay. Now, I did some research. I went back. The neighbor previously, right where I was standing, used to raise chickens.
Ah, okay.
Yes. So now I'm thinking, aha. So I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. A partridge in a pear tree. Oh,
sure, they're used to food sources in that area. So either the theory is that they move based on different food conditions in their territory, right? And they don't stay in one area more than a couple of weeks, so they don't overtax the food sources there. And then they only return on a specific cycle to give time for the food sources to kind of recuperate. Again, that's just theory and conjecture based on, study patterns and stuff like that. And even when they come to an area, they don't usually hit the exact same area, but once every so often, depending on how large their territory is and how many individuals are in that clan. So I could see as this possibly being an area where they're returning to and rescoping out food sources and hey, the chickens aren't here anymore, but the pear tree's still here.
Now you know about the sighting I had with the 3 turkeys. Remember that one?
Yep.
That's a half mile away from this location.
Sure.
Now I went back to sneak to put up some trail cams in that field from physical therapy. because the gate was open. And I had 2 trail cams. On the way back, I got brave enough to go ahead to drive in there to sneak on the field property to do it. They cut the field. So I didn't do it.
Huh?
So, yeah, I backed out.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I mean, there's so many things there, though. I mean, if it's a single lady and kids, I mean, Bigfoot are known to just watch them.
Oh.
And just, you know what I mean? Just watch them like a TV.
Is next to the fence?
Huh.
A trampoline.
Oh.
Yes. One of those oversized trampolines.
Yep. So there's a lot. Yeah. So that makes sense.
I'm not saying that I've got something. I'm just saying that this is giving more creed and some more possibilities.
Sure.
Now, I want to go next door and bang on the door and be like, hey, why you got these cameras up? Talk to me, lady. we need to talk.
Right.
But what was really strange is I didn't see her out all summer.
Yeah.
Nor did I see her kids out on the play set.
Or on the trampoline.
Or on the trampoline.
Huh. Yeah, it makes you wonder if they're experiencing stuff and mom's saying don't go out in the yard or don't do this. And with the cameras, you know, if you're involved in certain illegal activities, your camera's going to be pointed more into your perimeter of your house. And then watching your corners, well, even if it's on the back of the house, you're watching the back part of your house. You're not necessarily watching the wood line.
Right.
You know, depending on distances, and obviously I'm not sure, but I mean, that's a little different, you know? So, yeah, I mean, it's a good possibility. You need to get a reason to go talk to her and see if you can't get some information there.
Pardon me, do you have any gray poupon?
I'd like to borrow a cup of sugar. By the way, you seen any Bigfoots out here?
Is there any reason why you don't let your kids play in the backyard?
Right.
So, I don't know. So it's bedtime. We'll take your phone to the bed, Catherine. Welcome, Kelly, to the show. How you doing there, Kelly? So, but anyways, I just thought I'd tell you because I did a little homework and it was interesting. And ladies and gentlemen, it may not be nothing, but but when you look at the totality in law enforcement, when we say the totality, we look at everything as a whole.
Yeah.
You know, it gives us a lot of indicators. And it gives us more of a plausibility that there may be a possible chance of something going on. So now when I go to check the trail cams and they're missing, you know, I got each one hand serialized. I've got pictures of the serialized, the serial numbers and the pictures of the cameras. So that way I can file the reports if they are missing, if I can't find them, if they are tossed in the woods somewhere. And when I look, hello, Bigfoot and 2 old cougars. Welcome to the show. So, but
that's a great name.
Yeah, it is, right? But so I got all that covered. But but the person that went with me, I'm not going to say who it was, but she was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you know, I'm just trying a few things, right?
Yeah,
just trying a few things." Brian,
well, that's
in my case. The residents approached me and asked if I was trapping porcupines with peanut butter. Even though BB and no traps, right? That's funny.
Sure. Yep.
So,
well, and that as researchers, man, that's kind of what we have to do. It's like somebody said to me earlier about something. You take a whole handful of Velcro balls and throw them at the target and see which one sticks. You know, it's kind of the same thing. And as researchers, we look at all the different stuff, and then we can start connecting dots and discard stuff that doesn't connect and keep it like, you know, like you said, like you're just following the signs that led to the house and then looking at the house and seeing all this different stuff. And that's what we do. That's what a researcher does. We don't go in there already automatically knowing what we're doing. We just look at everything and follow where it goes. a lot of times most of the time it leads nowhere, right? But sometimes you get that, and then you can follow through and you can see the patterns.
Rebecca, there used to be a cop car in the driveway all the time. If she would told me that, there'd be an issue because everybody knows who I am. So yeah.
I was thinking the same thing, Rebecca. That thought did cross my mind.
That's the problem. But I did fail to mention this. Now everybody did get a notice to make sure our trash is in trash bags because animals have been getting in the trash cans. Now define animals. Now we do have raccoons and possums, so don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But I just want to throw that out there and bring you up to speed because I haven't talked to you.
Yeah, well, I got some update going on. I've finally been able to be convinced and started to research another animal attack case.
Really?
Yep. So myself and my research partner are going to be researching the Knott County attack on Corey Godsey. 13-year-old boy supposedly attacked by a pack of wild dogs. And so again, we're going through and we started the research. I have contacted, tracked down the coroner's office that was responsible for the autopsy. I have submitted my official written request for all the autopsy records. I am working on contacting the different reporters that covered the story to see if I can get any information from them. And my research partner has been reaching out to the community in the area and family members to get more information from them and what they think is going on and everything like that. So we're still in the early stages of everything, right? We don't have a whole lot of information. We're kind of in the data gathering section right now. But that's kind of where we are. And as we get more information, I'm going to go ahead and update the audience on what we're finding and what's going on.
Oh, interesting.
We have already run across 3 or 4 different theories from different people about what happened. And so we're going to be taking that on. Like, yep, already. As of now, there's no evidence behind any of it. It's just what people are telling us, what they think happened, what they think didn't happen. And that's kind of where we're starting with all these different theories. And then when we get the autopsy reports, we can analyze those and kind of see what they tell us. And we're just going to keep digging in to see what we can find with it.
Interesting. Okay, great.
Yep. So I'll keep you guys updated on that as we progress with it. I said I'm waiting to hear back from the coroner's office to find out what we can. Kentucky's a little different than Tennessee. Tennessee, I could just go online, submit an official request, and they emailed it to me in a couple of days. No big deal. In Kentucky, I had to call 3 different coroner's office to find who the right one was to call. And then that coroner office told me to call this guy at this mortuary house, and I had to call him and talk to him directly. And he said I had to send him a handwritten, snail-mailed letter requesting the documents, and then they have to mail it back to me. So it's a longer process. So this is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, I think you said something to me about that before, and I don't, with all the laws and KRSs, KRSs in Kentucky, ladies and gentlemen, it stands for Kentucky Revised Statutes. That is the law in Kentucky on the books. So it seems like there should be something on there. It should be a facsimile, email, or anything like that electronically should be acceptable.
Yep.
So, but I never did look it up. So that's my fault.
It's all right. Yeah, Rebecca. Unfortunately, the 13-year-old boy was found deceased, partly up a hill. And that's all part of the stuff what we're looking at. He was 13 years old, and he was deceased on it. So we're gonna dig into it and then see what we can find out. And we're just gonna go from there. I'm not going in with any assumptions because I don't do that. I'm simply gonna look at the evidence, look at the theories that are presented to me, and match the evidence to what we're being told, and then kind of see what we come up with, just like we did with the Cott County case.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian, FOIAs are a little bit different. I could submit FOIA requests, but I prefer to try and work directly with the specific agencies and get the public records first. Because a lot of FOIA cases are also redacted in a lot of ways and all this kind of stuff. So that's something for specific cases you can do a FOIA thing. But a lot of what I'm doing right now is simply public research, public records, and then kind of digging behind the scenes on stuff where I can. Yeah, it's a sad case. It really is. There's some things that don't add up for it, so that's why people are asking me to check it out, and we're just going to see what we can come up with.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's going to be something else. But yeah, so that's where we're at with what I got going on with my research and kind of what we're into and all that kind of fun stuff.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, it is, Rebecca. It's real sad to lose a child that way.
Yeah. And what drives me in these cases, guys, to be honest with you, is if it was a Dogman attack, like people are claiming, then the people, we need to be made aware that this is a possibility and this is a danger, and we need to be able to take action against it. Okay? If they're not Dogman attacks, then I feel it does a disservice and a dishonor to the family to be claiming it as a Dogman attack and not accepting the reality for what it is, right? So it's both things. If it's a Dogman attack, I want to be able to come out and say, yes, it is, and we need to be aware of it, right? And then what are you doing about it? But at the same time, I can't imagine. I have 6 kids. I can't imagine losing my kid in a horrific way and people claiming it was a monster when in my view it was a horrible accident. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like that would tear me up even more, that people are spreading lies or rumors or however you want to phrase it about my kid or my child. So that's really what motivates me to do this research and to figure out what's going on.
Bigfoot and the 2 old cougars now, codgers. Is that codgers? Yeah.
Yeah, so, 2 old codgers. I kind of like 2 old cougers better, but 2 old codgers, that works.
I know, right? That is called trifocals. That is called trifocals. So Mr. Decker brought me in on the Cott County.
The Cott County ones, yeah.
And he used my ex-law enforcement detective skills, and I went on it blind. And I used the totality of the autopsy report and the news statements and the police department's stories and statements to form my professional opinion on the case, because a lot of people were claiming Bigfoot and 2 old codgers that it was a Dogman attack.
And they still are.
And once I went through the totality of all the evidence and the autopsy reports, the medical reports, and we had the autopsy reports and we displayed them. We had copies of them, and I told everybody on the air, if you want a copy of them, here's my email address. And I'll send them to you. And everybody in the audience said Dogman, 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 and not one person sent me an email wanting the autopsy report. And there's a lot of stuff I couldn't read on the air because of some of the platforms we are on, because we're on 15 platforms and about 80 something Facebook groups. So some of the graphic verbiage I couldn't read, so we kind of change the verbiage a little bit, but you can still see it on the screen. You can still read it. But like the toxicology was on there, the wounds, the depth of the wounds, the lacerations, all the terminology was there. Why the arm was amputated, and so it went into great detail.
Yep,
but
absolutely.
At the end, the conclusion, it did not point towards a Dogman attack. It just
Nope.
was a
And
great torso and another dog
yep.
allegedly. So
5 up to 5 dogs is in the pack, and I'll say it again, and I say it every time we talk about this, Grizzly. If anybody has any evidence that points to any other direction, I am open to looking at it, and I am open to changing my conclusion based on the evidence. 100%. And I tell this to everybody that argues with me, and not a single person has presented me with any type of evidence whatsoever to the contrary. They'll tell me all kinds of stuff, and I'll say, okay, well, where's your documentation for that? Where are you getting this information? And not a single person has produced anything to refute it.
hey,
And
Wild
that,
Bill, welcome to the show, Wild Bill. Now, I will say this for Mr. Decker's defense. What was there a cover up? Yes, there was a cover up.
yes,
But
there
the
was.
cover up was for 2 other reasons, not
Yep.
for the Dogman attack, allegedly.
Exactly.
It was for other reasons tied to the suspect and the dog's owners.
Exactly.
That was the cover up. That was the reason for the delusion of the information, because they actually busted themselves in the autopsy report and the media releases.
Yeah.
They told on themselves is what happened. So
yeah, and I think it's pretty obvious what happened, but his specific question, he's talking about the Corey Godsey case, being up the hill. No, the original attack is said to have taken place in the backyard of the residence, and then he was dragged up the hill. So that's one of the things that we're looking specifically, because the official police report is claiming it was a pack of wild dogs, feral dogs, not just wild, but feral. You know, they were house pet breeds kind of a thing. And they got this information, they said, from DNA off of the body that they collected, which should be in the reports. And due to some surveillance and knowledge in the area, they found a pack of wild dogs living in a mine, like an abandoned mine shaft, close to the property. They captured these dogs, did DNA tests, and the DNA matched samples from the body to some of the dogs in the pack. Okay? So to them, that was conclusive proof that these dogs attacked and killed him and dragged him up the hill. So some of the points that we are going to be specifically looking for is what was the breeds of these dogs. Okay. Because one thing we know about dogs in a pack mentality, they don't work very well to be able to coordinate dragging a body up a steep, wooded, forested hill quite a distance. And that's what they're claiming happened. So that's what we're going to look at. Some people say it was small breed dogs like corgis, right? And things like that. And that's just not a feasible option. So that's what we're going to look at, is find out definitively what breeds they're talking about and what kind of dogs are they talking about, and how can they explain a pack of dogs dragging this 13-year-old boy up a hillside. Because from my understanding, and I'm not an expert on dog behavior and pack behavior, that is unusual. That in and of itself would be an unusual circumstance, right? Because there's no reason for a pack to drag a body up a hill. If a pack of dogs attacks a person, they generally consume them on the spot because they're in a pack and they're attacking. Feral dogs don't just drag bodies up around. So that's what we're going to look at, the wounds and the autopsy reports. There's a lot of data points that we need to corroborate for their story to make sense.
Not only that, there are also protocols and laws in place.
Yep.
So when there is an attack, a dog bite, let's just call it a dog bite. Okay.
Yep.
There are laws in place that law enforcement and animal control must do at that point as soon as they are notified. So that's where I look at whatever he presents. If he doesn't bring if he does bring it to me, then I check into the laws and I follow and see if they follow the proper protocol in the laws that are on the books. And then I look at the what I call the detailed and the articulation of the reports and what they say and how they say things. Because I'm also a handwriting analysis person. I've been certified in that through my law enforcement experience. So there's a lot of things I help him out if he
that's
does
the key with the research, guys. And that's what I try and express to people is the fact that I don't rely on my own information and my own knowledge, right? My research partners, one is a registered nurse. He used to be a trauma nurse in the ER. So he is very familiar with trauma and how it's treated and the way things work in an emergency room and in a hospital setting, right? He's devoted his life to this. So he knows that stuff, right? One of my other research partners was a deputy coroner. So he understands the process of the autopsy and how the coroner works and everything, every step of the way. He knows and he has a full understanding of it. He was also a search and rescue captain. He did search and rescue for 30 years. He was an EMT. He worked with the fire department. So this guy has a full, complete understanding of the processes of responding to an emergency situation, of what a search and rescue operation looks like and what is correct and what is not correct. I do not rely on my own information or my own knowledge to do these investigations. I rely on experts, but like Grizzly and a law enforcement expert. I rely on what they say, and that's what I go by. And so that's where I am very confident when I do my research that we're coming to the right conclusion. Because there's a lot of times I'll throw a theory out there and they're like, no, you see this here? This says different. And that's what we do. Before I even present anything, I'm checking with expert. And if I don't have an expert in that particular field, I will find an expert in that particular field to talk to. You know, I have people that work for vets offices for 20, 30 years. I have people that train animals, people that work specifically with large, aggressive breed dogs and behavioralists. Like, I have friends in all those fields, and I bounce questions off them and theories off them so we can make sure we're really covering it, because I really want to know the truth and figure out what's going on. You know, and that's really important. If you have a researcher and they're doing all the work themselves, and they're going, a secret source told me this, you know, that to me, that's not being transparent, and that's not really following on all the research that you need to do. You know, it's really important.
And ladies and gentlemen, if you have not watched my crime shows I do on Friday nights at 6 p.m. with the psychics and people with abilities, if the department's done something and they made a mistake, I call them out.
Yeah.
And I will actually call the detective in charge of the case and record the phone call. I've actually called the FBI on cases and record the phone call, and I don't have a problem with that. So I'm very neutral. If somebody brings me a case and wants me to review it, I look at everything neutral. So I know a lot of departments don't like that. I know the shirt I'm wearing, if you see what it says on it. Maybe I shouldn't air that on the show. Maybe I should keep my camera up a little bit, but I'm just saying, you know, I just want to make sure people don't jump to conclusions, and everybody wants the new LBL to be out there, right?
Yep.
And it's real easy to start the rumor mill.
Oh, gossip. Man. I even today,
once you get it going, it's hard to stop.
Even today, man, and I didn't even but people drew me into it, where people are saying false things that just aren't true and accurate about the county attacks. And it gets frustrating, man. It really does, right? Because now I'm hearing Amber had her arm tore off and had a leg tore off and all this, and one of the bites had 63 teeth marks in it, and none of that anywhere is factual or substantiated. And that's the only thing we can go by as researchers. Other than that, it's all made up. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it gets frustrating. So the research is important. Excuse me. Look at the details. And you can't just take people's word for stuff. You need to find the documentation. Otherwise, it's simply opinion and conjecture, and half of it is false. And I try to be very, very clear when I'm giving an opinion or I'm giving a theory, as opposed to I can say when something is fact. I may not always clarify, but I always try to. This is my theory, this is conjecture, this is my opinion, or these are the facts of the case as we can see them documented.
Yeah, Brian, I do that. I don't have a problem. People send me all kinds of cases I review.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, absolutely, Brian, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Midnight Squatchers, WL is a wild story.
Yeah.
Did it happen? Yeah, I say it did happen.
It happened. The question is, what happened?
That is the fact right there.
Yep.
That's the perfect way to put that statement. So
yeah. And
really
then looking at that, okay, so I haven't done my own research on that, because I mean it's an overdone case as far as I'm concerned. Everybody's done research on it already. Me going over it, the only information I would really find is the information that's already out there that everybody's already gone through. So there's no real point for me to do any research on that, right? I have a lot of friends and respected people that have done the research on that, and I value their opinion. And then they say, this is legitimate how this happened. And I go by that. That's one of those cases where I believe the known evidence points to it was an attack by an unknown creature, and it looks like, given what we know or can think, would be a dogman or a dogman-like creature. We'll put it that way. It wasn't any of the known predators that were out there, and it doesn't look like it was a human-caused issue. And that's what we have to go with. You know what I mean?
All right. So, no disrespect to Mr. Decker, but I'm going to do this one time.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at the camera while I say this. And I said this on the air last time somebody said this to me. If this guy is legit, take a polygraph test. If you're going to badmouth the people that's deceased and call them liars, that's no longer here on earth to defend themselves and their story, then I said on the air, and I'll say it again, quit doing your shows, take a polygraph test, I'll make the phone call. We'll validate your story. There you go, Mr. Barber.
Yep. Because the reality is, we all want to know the truth.
Well, number one, I don't take kindly to anybody calling anybody a liar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take kindly to anybody disrespecting somebody that's not alive.
Mm-hmm.
That cannot defend themselves. So there's alleged reasons why this person, I'm not going to name the person, why they allege, why they waited, whatever the reason they want to say, whatever.
Yep.
I said it on the air and I said it again, take a polygraph test. It's the only thing, we'll nail it. With the technology we have today, ladies and gentlemen, we went over this before on that show. You ain't going to pass a polygraph test with narcotics in your system. I'm sorry, not with the technology we have today. I'm not talking about a back hoods, and I'm no offense to you, Justin, or my county where I live in, Hazard or wherever, backwoods. I'm talking a major city, that's got the latest technology, not some 40 or 50 lie detector, polygraph examiner technology.
Right.
I'm talking that's 10, 15 years old or newer. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the guy. I'm just saying, do not be disrespectful to people that are past and their family. That's what, I almost said a naughty word on the air. But that's what makes me upset.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you want to disagree, you can disagree. But the comments I heard is downright disrespectful and unwarranted, and that's not needed in this community.
Agreed.
And I won't say nothing else.
There you go.
So.
So now that we haven't even touched the topic we were going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, right. Well,
Lordy.
I will take up for people in the community,
Yeah.
when I think it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But when I first saw that, and it bothered me. It was just because if that was my mom or dad, aunt, uncle that's no longer here, that's very disrespectful.
Exactly. Yep.
So, and there's a right way to communicate things, and there's a right way to explain things.
Yep.
So, but yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. I'm about to die. I'm about to scratch my skin off my body. So,
them chiggers.
Brian Barber didn't know what chiggers were, and I told I told the people in UK today. They're like, how they talk funny, right, over UK, and because I do a lot of UK shows on with them. Off my shows, and they're like, how you doing today? And I was like, I'm full of chiggers. And they're like, oh, that's awesome. And I'm like, what the hell you mean it's awesome? It's terrible. And they're like, no, it's great. And I'm like, you don't know what chiggers are, do you? They're like, no. And then just say you don't know what they are. But yeah, poor Kelly. Look, see, she don't even know what they are, right? But anyway,
chiggers, little balls of satanic fire is what chiggers are.
I thought I've been calling them turkey mites all these years. Is what I've been calling them.
Oh, I don't know. I just growing up, we call them chiggers.
When somebody showed me pictures of them,
what
they actually look like, I thought those were turkey mites. But I know what chiggers are on the body because I got
yep.
But I thought the bug I thought they were turkey mites. So. Anyways, hello, Kelly Druce. Welcome to the show. Nice to have you. So what was we going to talk about? I done forgot.
We were just going to talk about some a couple of really odd cases that I've gotten personally, where I've talked to the witnesses through social media, and just kind of bringing it out there about some of these weird things that have happened. I know I've alluded to them a couple times on the shows. I know you and I have talked about some of them briefly, but just a couple of really weird, and I don't mean weird like the people are weird, but just very unusual incidences that people have contacted me about. And what's amazing about it is these people get a hold of me in different Facebook groups that are not paranormal related. Right. And so for me, right off the bat, I'm already thinking there's some credibility here, right? Because they're not going to some paranormal group with some story that they made up or got off Reddit or creepypasta. They mentioned something in a non-related group, and I tell them that I am open and willing to hear them and not ridicule them, and to listen to their story and discuss it what I can. And so they message me and they tell me their story. And that's a big one for me. That's what I enjoy doing, because a lot of people experience a lot of crazy things in this life, and they're afraid nobody's going to believe them, or they're afraid people are going to call them crazy or mock them. I mean, how many times do we see that within the Bigfoot groups and Dogman groups and paranormal groups, right?
Right.
And so I just give them an ear and let them tell me their story. And these two particular stories, one of them is a very short one and one is a little more lengthy. They're not that uncommon, in fact. And that's what I let them know, is you're not the only one to experience these things. You're not the only one to see these things. You're not crazy. You just had an experience, and that's okay. The first one I will talk about is a recent one that somebody told me about, very short. This lady had just asked if anybody had heard of this thing that she saw. And so I got her to give me some details and tell me about it. This happened in Tennessee, near Elizabethan. And apparently, this lady is a practitioner of different types of meditation and stuff like that. And she was doing what she called lucid meditation in her backyard next to like a creek kind of a thing, or a small river. And I asked her to explain what she meant by lucid meditation, because that was a new phrase for me. And traditional meditation, you're closing your eyes, you're blocking out the outside stimuli, and you're focusing on your inner self. Okay, that's like traditional meditation. She said with lucid meditation, it's kind of the opposite. You're not blocking out the outside world, you're loosening yourself to be able to absorb and to experience more of the outside world and to be more connected with the outside world. So it's kind of like meditation in reverse. She called it lucid meditation. And while she was out there doing this, she noticed down by the side of the river, she said it was like 6 feet away or so, was a very big, she said either like a toad or a frog. Okay, so either one. Many people can't tell the difference, so that's not a big deal. So it was very like dark brown. She said it was massive, like a dinner plate size. And she noticed it sitting there on the rock. She didn't see it before she went into meditation, but she did see it at this point. Okay. But then she said it turned its head and looked at her. But she said it didn't turn its head like a frog, it turned its head like a person. And the face was a human face. And then when it looked at her, that's when she saw on the back of the head had stringy, dark, wet hair. When it was facing away from her, she didn't see any hair. It looked just like a big toad, but when it turned, she could see a face and the hair. And she said it looked at her with almost a look of like disgust, like, oh, I can't believe you saw me kind of a thing. And then it just turned and hopped into the river and disappeared. So that's the extent of the encounter. Okay. And at face value, it's kind of like, wow, okay, she was hallucinating, she was imagining something, all this kind of stuff, right? But the problem is there's elements of that I have heard before. There's elements in the story that have come up before. Okay. And this is weird because I've been trying to find it. I have seen, at least in my brain, I'm seeing it, a watercolor painting in Asian style, like Japanese style. Okay, if you're familiar with like the watercolor paintings and with the different Japanese demons and spirits and all this kind of stuff, I can see this in my mind's eye where there is a frog-type creature with a human face, a woman's face, and woman's hair. And I can actually see the picture in my brain because I see in pictures, and there's like a peach background to it. That's the watercolor, the light peach. And there's like 3 or 4 of these things in different poses in this picture. And so what she's describing to me was not an unknown thing. I can't remember the name, and I can't place the picture, and I've been searching for it. I'm going to find it. So there's that element of it. I have heard of people seeing things in this meditative in nature state. Sometimes with the use of different types of chemical inspiration, and sometimes without. And there's one story I remember reading where there was some people out in the yard in the UK somewhere, and they saw like a bunch of little people, like in a line, like a caravan, like walking along the edge of their garden in the woods, right? So this type of sighting is not unfamiliar to me. And also the look of disgust or disdain, or that look of, wow, I can't believe you can see me. That is very common in different type of paranormal encounters. Bigfoot encounters, right? How many times have we heard it looked at me like it was surprised that I saw it? You know what I mean? And so all those elements put together ring of truth to me because, again, I have heard these elements in lots of different stories and lots of different attributes. That was our whole conversation. That's what she told me. That's the report I took from her. Obviously, I have no way of saying if it's truth or not, or whether she's just telling me a really well-crafted story or not. I don't know, right? So I can't say one way or the other. But I do know that in her telling it to me, it sounded very sincere. She readily answered my questions. There wasn't anything that was like didn't line up or didn't match to the story. So there was elements in there where I'm going, if she's telling me a story, it was very well made up with the right elements in it. You know, but I mean, have you guys in the audience ever heard of anything like that or a similar experience or that type of creature? Or have you seen the pictures that I'm talking about? So I want to get some feedback from you guys and from you too, Grizzly, on if you've heard anything similar or kind of like it or what your take on it is.
I never heard of a frogman. I don't know. Now I know. I think of a comic book frogman.
Well, I know, like Japanese lore has like the kappa or kappa and all these other things, but they're different types of water demons, but they're not described specifically like that. I know Ohio has the Loveland frog, which is a cryptid, correct. But at the same time, it's described differently. That's more of a humanoid frog that was walking upright, 3 to 4 foot tall, blah, blah, blah. So not the same description as this was. To me, this sounds more like, and then just because we don't have another phrasing for it, something like the fae, like the fairy folk, or just something from that other realm. You know what I mean? It's kind of what it sounded like to me.
But I wonder how many other people have seen stuff, because I met people in Tennessee that saw stuff that didn't know what they saw until I met them. They're like, well, you're into this stuff. I've seen this. I don't know what it is. Oh, I know what that is. Let me show you a picture. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
It looks almost identical. Yeah. And I don't tell anybody, but everybody in town knows because they've seen something similar too. And
yeah, but nobody wants to talk about it. Yeah. Yep.
So so I don't know.
It's a great story. I'm going to keep researching it to see if I can find anything on it. And that's what I told her is like, really, there's not much I can tell you, but I will look into it and I will try and find something. I will find that picture because I remember seeing that picture.
Cliff Jones. I see blue when I open the third eye, and then I see shapes and figures of people. Interesting. Yeah. It was explained as codes. She's using codes because of the.
I guess.
Because of one of our platforms.
Oh, okay.
So, but
so that was one good story.
I wish Irene was in here because Irene would know because she's from Japan.
Oh, that'd be perfect. Yeah.
So
that would have been great.
Usually Irene's up this late because she can't sleep. She is a psychic, and she has a lot of abilities, and she knows a lot of Japanese. Well, of course, she's going to know Japanese and Chinese folklore.
Sure, that'd be great. I would love to get her take on it. Maybe she'll watch this afterwards and maybe contact you and then kind of give us some information. That'd be great. If not, let's try and make a mental note the next show we see her in to bring it up and we can ask her about it. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I see her 3-4 times a week. So I'll ask her about that.
Okay, awesome. So the next report I got was a very interesting report out of North Florida. And this was a guy in a hiking group who came onto the hiking group and was being very vague, just asking people if they'd ever seen anything strange or anything weird while they were hiking. Just kind of fishing to see kind of what the response would be. And a lot of people kind of made fun of him and cracked jokes about meth heads and all this kind of stuff, right? But I reached out to him and I said, hey, man, if I'll be happy to talk to you if you want to message me and we can talk about it and just tell me what you saw. And so he did. And he relayed a story to me that is probably the most unusual story I've ever directly gotten reported to me. It's absolutely fascinating in several different elements. So this guy is a professional. He's a professional in a specific industry, well-educated man. He enjoys hiking. There are several hiking trails in Florida, definitely not like up here in the mountains, right? But through the Everglades and through the forest, the Florida woods and stuff. And so he was out hiking on a popular trail one day, and he was coming across some hog sign. Now, for you guys that don't know, hogs are all over the place in Florida. It's a huge problem down there. They run in huge packs, and they can be dangerous. They can be very dangerous. So he was being wary, and he was paying attention to what was going on. And he came to an area, and he heard something grunting. So he went and looked and kind of went through the brush off trail a little bit. And he found a hog waller with a big hog in it. Just a big old hog. He said he could smell it. It was just a massive hog. And it was just kind of laying there. So he kind of stopped and watched it for a minute. And then suddenly it stood up. It just stood up. Okay. Like it alerted. I don't know if you ever seen a hog laying down, all of a sudden it alerts, like it hears something, it stands up on alert. But then he said it was weird because this thing froze. Like didn't move at all. It wasn't breathing. The ear wasn't twitching. It wasn't grunting. It completely froze static. Okay. And then he said it started to change. The legs kind of absorbed up into the body. The head just kind of melted and became featureless and kind of absorbed into the body. And the whole body just kind of turned into this floating blob. And he described it as like a water balloon filled with oil was the best way he could describe it. Like those squeezy balls, you know, the stress balls that are filled with liquid and you can see the liquid moving around and all that kind of stuff through a really thin membrane. He said that's what it looked like. The surface was oily looking and it was just kind of like a bubble just kind of floating there, but it was black. And then from there, it started stretching taller. So it went from lengthwise as a hog into this ball this way, and then it started going this way. And as it went up, it started forming another shape. And he could see shoulders starting to appear at the top, and the head started coming out. And then the legs were extending down, and he could see feet. And it morphed into a person. But not just into a person, but a fully clothed hiker with sunglasses and a backpack. Like he said it was like a camel pack, right? The water packs. He said it was like one of those.
Oh, hell
and
no.
I know, right?
No.
And I'm just listening to this guy, and I'm like, oh, holy cow, dude. And he said once it formed, it was completely still again.
No. Mm-mm.
And then it started. Then it unpaused and started moving and walked out of the brush and onto the trail and walked off. And he said he turned around and ran terrified back to his vehicle. Which I think I probably would have had a heart attack and died right there. Like, I'm not going to lie. That'd have been the end for me. But that was his story. And he was like really hesitant to tell me. He was afraid I'd think he was crazy and all this. And I can understand why. And so I started asking him to just describe in detail. Possibly. We don't know, right, Brian? I mean, Possibly.
Oh.
But here's the thing. I asked him one very specific question about his description of that amorphous blob. I said, you described it as like an oil-filled balloon kind of thing, right? And I said, can you picture a thick black garbage bag floating in the air? Could it kind of be described like that? And I had a reason for asking that. And he said, that is actually another really good description of how somebody could describe what I saw. Okay. Now, here's why I asked him that. Because I have heard over the years probably 3 or 4 reports of people seeing what they described as a garbage bag filled with air floating across the landscape. Okay. And it was like black, shiny, like a yard bag, right? And one of the reports said that they would see this thing floating across their backyard at night with no wind or no way to carry it. And it wasn't like just blowing in a wind. It was just kind of floating across the yard. And I've heard something very similar to that plastic. In fact, just to promote, not promote, but talk about another podcast, Expanded Perspectives is a great podcast. And they talk about this a few different times. And that's where I heard that one story from of seeing a black, and they started asking people, who's seen something like this? So it's a phenomenon that people are experiencing. And so I'm seeing if there's a connection between that black garbage bag that nobody has an answer for. Could it be some sort of entity, some sort of elemental? And does it have the ability to shift forms? Maybe that amorphous blob is its natural state. Maybe that is its form. And it has the ability to change to other things depending on what's happening in the environment. Because his suggestion was maybe this was like a skinwalker, right? Maybe it was a guy who for some crazy had the ability to transform to a hog, which is another possibility. We don't know, right? But he was, again, completely sincere. He's checking his own. He was going to go check with the Native Americans in the area. The name of the tribe is escaping me right now. North Florida, if anybody can throw it out there for me. But he was going to go check with Indian lore to see if any of the locals knew anything about anything like that. But just an amazing story that this guy experienced. And then I just assured him, I've heard other stories. I've never heard that exact story. I've never heard of anybody seeing the transition like that. That was completely blew my mind. I've heard of transitions of one thing to another, or an animal running into a bush and a human coming out the other side. I've heard those kinds of stories, but I've never had a report come to me describing the process of the transformation. Brian, I asked him that question. He said he did not recall any other types of smells or sounds or anything like that. He said the whole transformation process took maybe 15, 20 seconds in total from hog to person walking away. But other than just smelling the hog smell when he walked up to the wallow, he didn't recall any other sights or sounds. I asked him if he heard anything while it happened, because sometimes you'll hear birds, and then during the event, there's no sound at all, things like that. But he said he couldn't recall anything other than just those seconds where he watched in amazement as this thing transformed into a person and took off walking.
Yeah.
But I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I can't even, like, that's wild. That's wild.
It's the man from Glad.
So what do you guys think of that? I mean, have you heard anything about, shape-shifting like that? Because we've talked about shapeshifters before.
So
that's not an uncommon thing. But what about that specific transformation process?
Transformation from the blobs, from people?
Yeah.
Yes. Out of people? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Demonic? Yes. But from an animal to the blob to a human figure? No.
Mm-hmm.
So, hello, Wendell Mosley. Welcome to the show. Nice to have you.
What was he smoking? Well, that's one of the questions I asked the people. Were you inebriated in any way? Were you partaking in anything? And he said, well, I do sometime. He's like, but not on this trip. And I was completely sober all the way. Completely sober all the way.
And Wendell, anytime we interview people, cat balls, you crack me up. They are going off like crazy, cat. Anytime we interview people, Wendell, we always ask also very cautiously about their mental state, about medications.
Yep.
If they're on any, are they taking any? Have they quit taking any? There's a very process that we go through. I mean, we just don't say, "Hey, Mr. Decker, so you had an experience, so tell us about it," and that's it. I mean, we actually go through a lengthy process, an interview process, to make sure that that because mental awareness is a big issue in the world today. Mental illness is very huge, and it is a problem. And I'm not going to deny that. First responders, people in military, traumatic events, near-death experiences, people losing loved ones, children's, parents, however you want to look at it, can alter a human mind. The human mind
absolutely
protects itself, right? Now, if we look at paranormal stuff, we can look at it as good versus evil. We can look at it as the string theory, if you ever heard of that. We know there's 3 dimensions. Scientifically, it's proven we're up to 11 dimensions. We talk about this in other shows. We talk about frequencies. We talk about how we can see on certain levels, and deer and other animals can see on other frequencies and other levels we cannot. Infrared, IR, and so forth. Same thing with hearing, right? Certain animals. So, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. So, and yes, and I'm not saying it's a great question because me being in law enforcement, I couldn't tell you how many times I've taken reports. I've been like, what did you do before I got here? Right? But after a while, you're like, man, when you're starting to get people from Tennessee, from Georgia, from California, from Washington, Oregon, New York, South Carolina, Virginia, and they're all telling you the same story, and none of these people know each other. Now, wait a minute. Now we got some credence here. Now we got something to start to bite into, and now we need to step back and start taking a look. And here I use this word, totality, right? Totality, I use a lot in law enforcement, is everything as a whole. And look at everything, because everybody's not going to conjure up the same thing in the same story.
And now, it's the little details, details that make the difference.
And I will say this, Wendell. Now, is there little Johnny running around out there in an ape suit, drunk, causing havoc in an ape suit? Yes, absolutely. There are hoaxes and people fakes. Yes, we do have those. Now, there are things that sound crazy, like Brian Barber. Brian, I love you to death. You said I can use you. I'm going to use you. Now, this guy, if you don't know him and you heard his story, you'd be like, dude, this guy is smoking on a pipe. There ain't no way he has done what he's did with Bigfoot. And there ain't no way he's got what he's got in his freezer. Now, I can't help from laughing every time, Brian. I'm sorry about the sweet and low, but I'm just saying. But, I have probably done over 1,800 interviews, maybe over 2,000 interviews in my lifetime, civilian and in law enforcement. So I've got a lot of certifications, ATF, FBI, Homeland Security, a lot with the law enforcement and also through the private sector too, because the civilian sector, the private companies, you got to have their certifications as well.
Yep.
But anyways, but there's a lot of things you learn about human behavior and body language, micro expressions, and so forth. I'm not going to go into great detail because of active law enforcement that use the techniques. And if we have bad people watching the show, I don't want to give the tricks away. Yeah, it's very interesting. And that there's books I will recommend people to go out and to buy, and you'll lose friends. You will learn your family members that are not telling you the truth. And that's why I'm not married, Wendell. I'm sorry. And if my daughter's watching the show, she knows. So, but no, and but this is how we look at things, right?
Yeah.
And Wendell, I used to years ago only believed in certain things. And when I say certain things, I'm talking Bigfoot and so forth. Now, Wendell, you're going to laugh at me. I believe in fairies. I believe in mermaids. And you're probably laughing. And you know what? I have interviewed people on my show and have fairies fly in front of their camera live, being televised on the air across worldwide. And I'm like, did you just see that fairy fly in front of your camera? They're like, yeah, we got them around. They're in the house. They mess with the bird feeders. And I'm like, you do. And everybody's like stopping the video and rewinding. And it's like, it had wings and legs and arms. I'm like, I told you it was a fairy. Now, there's a difference between an orb and a fairy. And we can go into that in a different show. But it's very interesting. But once you start interviewing stuff and talking to people, you sit back and you're like, wow. Now we got some credence to something, right? So is this a possibility? Now it'll be different if you got, 4 or 5 of Justin's friends saying, hey, Grizzly, you know what? Last weekend, I saw this. And then his buddy, a week from now, I'm like, hey, last month I saw this. That's a little different, because in law enforcement, spouses and girlfriends, boyfriends, that your testimony really don't count. It's out the window. I'm sorry. I hate to say that. It really doesn't count, especially in the court of law. I'm sorry you're going to take sides. Okay. So, but when you got people that are across the country or across the world, that are telling you the same stories. And like he said, the small, fine details. And you're like, whoa, I just heard that same story last week from a guy from California that happened, 10 years ago. And this happened to this guy 4 years ago. And this happened a year ago. And then you start tracking it down. This happened to that one girl. What'd you say? That girl in Tennessee with the frogman. How long ago?
I think that was just a couple years ago. That was pretty recent for her.
So, and how long did it take her to come forward?
Yeah, exactly. And she said she hadn't really told anybody else.
So, right. And it's because people that know that we're into that field, they kind of like, hey, I know you're kind of like into Bigfoot, but what about...
yes, that happens a lot.
So then they know that we believe in a creature or a something. So we're not going to look at them and be like, really? So that fear factor is a lot less than it is talking to their mom or dad or family member. We're like, oh, whatever, man, you must have got a bad bag, or
exactly.
But it's not, So, it's just a lot of things we look at, but mental illness is an issue, and we use that as a card in interviewing. I just want to throw it out.
And then Wendell, going to the drug use, this is that's a big part of it too, right? And then part of my story is I'm an ex-user. I'm an addict, but I've been clean for 20 years. Okay. I know the mental effects. I know the physical effects. I know what these drugs can do to you. I know what to expect when you're on these kind of drugs. I've done it. I've experienced it. You know what I mean? And if you haven't done those drugs, you have this idea of what it is, but you don't know because you've never done it. You know? And I'm not proud of my past, but that is part of my story of who I am today. And I'm happy to be celebrating 20 years clean and sober off of any drugs like that. You know what I mean? But when people say, oh, he must have been, most drugs do not give you lucid, clear, hallucinatory experiences. And that's the reality of it. That's the reality of it.
And Wendell's right. Every myth or legend has some truth, and that is
absolutely
a true known fact, Wendell.
That is what right. My research, Wendell, because you're new to the show. Again, welcome. We appreciate you coming on. My background, my research is based on that assumption. Okay? Now, that's not saying all the details that we have right. Like Grizzly talking about fairies. Sure, we can call them fairies, and we can see them and experience them. That doesn't mean we know what they are. That doesn't mean it's the same thing as an Irish or a Scotsman would call a fairy in their lore and their background. It doesn't mean we're talking like the round Knights of the Round Table and King Arthur and fairies over there. That doesn't mean it's the same thing, right? It's just the word that we use to describe it because that's what it looks like. And the idea is they probably experienced them as well and created their own mythos, their own legends around that experience. That doesn't mean there's any knowledge in those stories because we don't know. It's probably all made up, right? But the initial experience of encountering something is what those stories are based off of. And that's where the kernel of truth is about in those legends. And that's what most of my research is. You know what I mean? That's most of what I go by is that kind of that thought process.
And Wendell, you're right. You actually have to be open-minded because I used to draw the line, and every time I drew the line in the sand, unfortunately, I would have to move that line. And so over the years, I quit drawing the line in the sand, and I was just open-minded to anything because of all the reports that we get in interviews people on the show, and I keep an open mind. And when somebody comes to me, Wendell, with evidence, and says, Grizzly, is this picture real or is this video real? Number one, I wasn't there. Number two, I didn't take it. So with all the technology out there, we do have people that fake stuff. We have pareidolia that, people want to see things and images do appear that's not there. So, there's a lot of factors in looking at cases and pictures and videos and so forth, so Wendell, I mean, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're part of the show. I mean, you got some good perspectives on things and so forth, and I'm glad you joined in and chimed in.
Welcome to the rabbit hole, man. This is what we do. We pick a topic and we just dive deep, find out what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those were the two crazy. I hate to use the word crazy because I always have these negative connotations to it, right? The two wildest stories, the reports that I've gotten, and I don't know what to do with them, but I've heard similar stories, similar tales. You know what I mean? So, and I say this to people all the time: just get out there, because people always ask, "Well, where do you get your reports from? How do you find stuff?" Like, I don't. I'm just willing to listen. And I tell people I'm willing to listen. If they say they've seen something weird, I say, well, you can tell me. It's okay. Let's talk about it. Maybe I can understand it to you. You know what I mean? And I try and do that. And that has opened up so many new investigations and just experiences and friends that have come from that. If you ever see my vehicle, I have Bigfoot stickers all over the back and side of my vehicle, like all different kinds of Bigfoot stuff, right? Now, I'm not just a Bigfoot researcher. I'm a Fortean researcher. I look into anything weird and strange and out of ordinary, right? But I can't tell you how many times people have come up to me just because of those stickers and say, do you believe in that stuff? I said, well, yeah, I'm into it. And like I'm cool with it. And they'll tell me their own experience. And they say, well, I had this happen. What do you think about that? Or I had this happen. And it's just amazing because people want to be able to tell somebody without being made fun of for it, because it's something they need to get off their chest, you know? And it's just amazing if you're willing to have that open heart and that open mind and be willing to listen to people, what they'll come and tell you without even you asking about it or even just trying to find something. Because when you try and find something, you're going to find those people that are going to give you a good cock and bull story. They're going to make up something, the craziest thing you ever heard, because they know you're looking for it. Because they figure you're going to believe them hook, line, and sinker. You know what I mean? But when people are approaching you, it's a whole different ball game, man. It's a whole different feeling. It really is. You know?
The weirdest thing I've seen in my life is when I find fairy braids and 2 of my 4 horses. I know that's a former owner's past. Yeah,
oh, so, oh man, we could go on a whole rabbit hole just on that.
So, Wendell, that's what I've learned, and that's why I said I tuned in for the first time. That's what I heard and made me ask.
Yeah,
Wendell, this is a safe zone. You know,
yep.
what everybody says in here, we're open arms. You know, we don't judge. You know, we talk about different theories. We talk about different cryptids and different folklores and monsters, if you want to call them that. People.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, but it's always interesting. Never a dull moment. So. And Wendell, I have prospecting group, and I have gotten some good stories. Well, maybe we come on the show.
Yeah.
So,
always love a good story.
Absolutely. You know, maybe it's something that we have maybe not heard, or maybe can have similar stories as well. Look, everybody's welcoming you to the group already again. So,
yeah.
So, somebody see here, Crystal. Hello, Crystal. Welcome to the show. I haven't seen you there. Midnight Squatchers. Has anyone seen Paranormal caught on tape? They show a white cloud floating down to the ground. It changed shape. It floated up to and put its hand up, and wow. No, I haven't seen that one.
Nope. I don't get to watch a lot of TV. I'm out here in the sticks. And I don't even have a TV in my camper. I've got a computer that doesn't really do much because I've got no internet. We use it to watch. I got a DVD player hooked up to it and stuff. So I just watch stuff like that. But I don't get to watch any of the shows right now. So I'm always behind on all that kind of stuff, which is kind of good when it comes to research stuff, I guess. I don't have all these preconceived stuff going on.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call it wraps for the night. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the show. Wendell, I'm glad you joined and chimed in. And hopefully you come back and pay us a visit. Hopefully you like this and subscribe so you can see us when we go live all the time.
Go back and look at our other shows, see what we've got going on. Yep. Absolutely.
And thanks everybody for chiming in. And we'll have a surprise on the next show. And from coast to coast around the world. That's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you on the next show. Take care.
Y'all have a good night, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.